This is the Comics Alternative Kickstarter, Discovering Eric, a graphic novel. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative Kickstarter. This is the weekly series where I talk with a creator or creative team that is currently running a Kickstarter campaign having something to do with comics. And this weekend, I have the pleasure of talking with Tom Manning. He's got a Kickstarter that's going on right now, Eric, a graphic novel. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm good. It's good to talk.
It is, or to talk again.
Indeed.
Yeah, for our listeners who may not be aware, you came on the podcast for a regular interview, I think just a tad over 2 years ago. We were discussing your book at the time, Runoff, that had just recently come out. Right. And we had a good long regular length interview. And then I saw that you had a Kickstarter campaign going on for this new project, Eric. And so I thought I'd have you back on the show, but this time for the Kickstarter series.
Yep. And I'm excited.
Yes. So now people can, go to Kickstarter, do a search for you, Tom Manning, or Eric, or the title Eric, or they could find a link through the show notes. But as they're, let's say, doing that, as maybe they're listening to this episode, explain what Eric is all about.
Yeah. So Eric, first of all, it's a 400-page graphic novel, so it will begin and end in under one spine. But it's a big book, and the gist of it is Eric is basically a B-list, washed-up singer songwriter from the late 60s, early 70s, who, in a sort of accidental resurgence in popularity, goes into a really surreal fall into madness in a way. It's like TheBig Lebowski meets Jacob's Ladder. I don't know if you remember that horror movie, Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
But unlike Runoff, which was told from the perspective of an entire town, of an ensemble, like this is all told through one person's perspective. And you kind of go down this rabbit hole with Eric. And he either is the most enlightened or most insane person in the story. It's sort of up to you to follow to that conclusion.
You were comparing it to what you did, or Eric, with what you did previously with Runoff, where you were describing the points of views through the ensemble cast. And one of the things I remember about Runoff was the way that at times you shifted styles, and we talked about that on that interview from 2 years ago. So I'm assuming, since we have primarily one perspective in Eric, is the style, the art style, going to be more or less consistent, nonetheless surreal?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. In a way, like with Runoff, genres were as trapped within this town as people. And in this, there's a consistency that goes through. However, there are major shifts in genre. Like it turns fully into a Western for a good third of the book. It's sort of a destroyed Los Angeles where you have to ride buffalo through saltwater soaked streets. And how you get there, you read the book, but the genre heavily changes, but the art style remains the same. Okay. But you move with Eric through these experiences that are less jarring and being pulled from, like in Runoff, you'd be pulled from like a Burke Breathhead Bloom County panel to something like a EC horror comic with dark shadows and so on. Like this doesn't have that same balance, but it has these strange drops of reality with the same style coming with it.
Well, tell me about the genesis of Eric. How did you come up with this idea? How long have you been working on this?
So I've been working on it for 10 years. And it's been a really long time, since 2008. And the genesis, as it started as a really simple idea where I was in 2007 or 2008, I saw a late night infomercial for like one of those CD collections from the 60s of all these kind of one-hit wonders and videos of the various people that did it, where they're like, do you remember, Chachi and the Robinsons sing, Candyland, and it made me just think this is a time when people were really thinking that they're going to change everything. And some people did, but everybody kind of wanted to be a Bob Dylan, or everyone wanted to implement a sort of change in reality that came with pop music at the time then. But most of these people, it could be used car salesmen or live under a bridge at this point. I don't know. And I just wondered what it would be like to have a taste of that relevance around that time and then become quickly irrelevant and still be around today. And I could imagine it being healthy or really unhealthy. And for Eric, who was in that position, it became really unhealthy. So the genesis of this character came from watching this infomercial, and it spiraled out to admittedly becoming more and more about me as a creator the more I got into the book, where it's the classic writing thing where you're like, well, of course this is partially about me, but it didn't really start out that way. But I realized there were a lot of things that kind of came up in my own personal experience. It's not at all a biographical book, but you can't help but realize how much you put in about yourself into a protagonist. And so it became a really sprawling story, which I finished about a year and a half ago. And I finished it completely, and my literary agent shopped it around for about a year and a half. And the good and bad thing was people saw it in completion and liked it, but wished they could have made some changes from an editorial perspective. But I was pretty rigid about, this is actually the way I really want this book to be. And I realized that for the book to be published the way I've intended it to be and the full run I want it to be, it's just going to have to be self-published. And so I decided if it didn't sell by last December, I would start going my own route. So here I am.
And because your title character, Eric, is a fictional musician, music is a part of what you're doing with this project, at least with some of the reward levels, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, he is a fictional Los Angeles musician that gained some degree of fame and following back in the day. And so for rewards for this Kickstarter, there are a few amazing contemporary Los Angeles musicians who recorded songs from the book as if they were covering a song of a real LA musician. So if you read Eric, there's a lot of meta levels that go on in the book, and this is a super meta level. I really am excited to be doing this, where Eric's songs are being covered by real contemporary Los Angeles bands, and they run the whole gambit from one is done by she's a country singer and a folk singer. One is and her name's Leslie Stevens. One is a hip hop DJ, a DMC world champ, amazing scratcher. His name's Mike Realm. And then there is an indie band that had wanted to do this anonymously to be Eric. And I really wish I could say who it is, but if you know the LA scene very well and listen to Beach Bum #1 by quote unquote Eric, you would probably know which band made this song that is supposed to be actually Eric's recording of a surf rock song called Beach Bum #1. But they're sort of a darling indie rock band from LA that they made me promise not to say who they are, which is why I'm being cagey about it.
And Tom, I see that you have already reached your goal, and congratulations on that. Thank you.
It's still up for, I think, as of today, 20 some more days. But it's the strategy of going with Kickstarter, where to actually publish this book is because it's 400 pages and I want it to be a really beautiful object, is going to cost just printing alone around $14,000. But I wanted to set the goal low enough to make sure it got reached. And so I reached my goal at 6,000 a weekend, which is great. But anything continuing on just continues to help pre-selling this book with the print costs. So by all means, the story has got a check next to it, but I don't consider it done. So I hope people continue to support the book.
And you say you met met your goal within a week?
I met it within a week, which was great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's less for you to worry about.
Yeah. And it's all good. It's going to press now. And it's been really helpful to start selling this, pre-selling it to help with the cost of printing. But I think that coming down with a new book from Runoff, I think I really haven't done a full new book since Runoff. In a way, this is really my second book, if you don't count a book I did in '99 called Race Car. So thankfully, there are fans of Runoff that I think are ready to see a new story for me. So here it is.
Yes. And this Kickstarter is going to be going on until Saturday, May 5th at 8:29 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So that's May 5th on a Saturday at 8:29 a.m. So when people listen to this episode, they'll still have plenty of time to back this.
I hope so, and I hope they do. Yep.
Yeah. Now, in terms of backing it, let's talk a little bit about the reward levels. Let's go over what people can back this for.
Sure. The first reward level is for $30, and you get the 400-page perfect bound book, the physical book.
And how many pages? I'm sorry.
It's 400 pages. To be totally honest, it's 392. So
Okay.
I should. I'm rounding up, but if people really want to go there and count, it is 392 specifically. And so they'll get the physical book and then the 3 songs of Eric, as I call the Beach Bum #1, So Surreal by Leslie Stevens, and Change the Channel by Mike Realm. And those will be, I'll send out a link for a free digital download of those 3 songs. And for $70, you get all that, the book and the 3 songs, and Eric t-shirt, and which I designed specifically for this campaign. And that is for $70. For $100, you get the book, the 3 songs, and a silkscreen poster, which I designed, which is it's a 3-color silkscreen poster made up of elements from the actual book, Eric. And then for $140, which is the highest pledge, you get the book, the 3 songs, the shirt, and the poster.
And I see you have quite a number of backers for that highest level.
Yeah, thankfully, I think people were kind enough to go all in for the extra goodies, which I'm happy to have as many people supporting the top tier.
Yeah, and your top tier is, I think, relatively affordable, because I've seen a lot of comics-related Kickstarter campaigns that start maybe really low, but they go way up there into the hundreds.
Yeah, I wanted this to be kind of in the happy medium. I had to, the cost per item of this book is pretty high because of its volume, and shipping costs are quite expensive. So I couldn't start as low as I was liking. Like, this is $30 is the lowest I could really go and sell the actual physical book. But I also wanted people to feel relevance with the top tier. And I wanted to provide what I think is some pretty good stuff for something that doesn't seem ridiculous. Yeah.
Now, is this your first Kickstarter campaign?
Ever. Yeah, it is.
Well, how are you finding this experience?
I really have been liking it. Like, I don't know what it's going to be like buttoning up, but in the spirit of trying to message and pre-sell a book, which really helps when you're self-publishing, just to get some money in to be able to pay the printer. This has been a really efficient and really amazing way to pre-sell the book, where I self-published back in '99 and self-published basically from '99 to 2002. And it was really tough because distribution was really only through Diamond, and there's really no way to penetrate into the market or message yourself well. Where this, I feel like you can let people know the full breadth of what you're trying to make, and you don't necessarily have to lean so much on distribution channels to be able to have things pop up on people's radar. So this helps financially, and this really, really helps get the word out, before it will go on. I hope for it to go on sale on Amazon once it's publicly out. But this really helps front end the costs of self-publishing.
Great. And again, we should remind listeners that this Kickstarter campaign will last until Saturday, May 5th at 8:29 a.m. Definitely check out Eric, the graphic novel. And if people wanted to find out more about you as a creator in the larger sense, I mean, find out about a number of your works, they could go to your website, tommanning.info.
That's right.
And that's TOMMANNING.info.
That's correct.
So, Tom, I want to thank you for talking with me again, this time for your Kickstarter campaign. It's been a joy having you back on the show.
It's so great to talk with you again. Thank you so much for highlighting this project.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. Good luck with this. And, Tom, we're going to end, thanks to you, with not our usual outro music, but with a song from the campaign. This is going to be Beach Bum Number 1.
By Eric. Enjoy it.
And I want to thank everyone for listening to this weekend show. I'll be back next Saturday with another comics-related Kickstarter campaign. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Follow me down to a place I go with the Pendleton bass and a hot rod glow. I'll be pulling on the curtain, checking the tide for Beach Bum Number 1. I know right is a Beach Bum Number 1, yeah. Beach Bum Number 1, yeah. Beach Bum Number 1, yeah. If you find yourself in Malibu with your bunny in the sand line next to you, just ask around for this Carrillo clown. It's a beach bum number 1 kind of town. It's a beach bum number 1, yeah. Beach bum number 1, yeah. Beach bum number 1, yeah. Beach bum, beach bum, beach bum, beach bum, beach bum, beach bum. Beach bum, beach bum, beach bum, beach bum, beach bum, beach
of the sunset land. I was born and raised by the surf and sand. I was riding a board before I could walk. Was funny with the bunnies before I could talk.